for the IELTS speaking. Hi there, my name is Ben Worthington. In this video, you're going to learn about 5 useful idioms, as I just said. These will help you sound more natural when you're speaking, when you're doing the test. And what I've done is I've used them and I've applied them by giving you sample answers to recent IELTS Part 3 questions. So I found these questions, like the follow-on questions, and then I will give you an example on how to use the collocation, how to use the idiom, in your answer. So the first idiom we can use is the fact of the matter. Okay, the fact of the matter means the real issue. One example, the fact of the matter is that I've taken IELTS 3 times and I'm still getting 6.5. Okay, this might be what some students might say. So I'll give you an issue now. I'll give you a typical, or a recent Part 3 question that was asked and how you could answer it using the idiom. So, what business will young people do? Well, the fact of the matter is that young people will probably be more inclined to do something technology related. I guess in that field, they have an advantage over older people. So this is a good answer for 3 reasons actually. One, I've used the idiom. Well, the fact of the matter is I've used it correctly in a natural way. I didn't force it into the sentence. Also, I've also answered in the same tense that was asked, that was used to ask me. So it's, what business will young people do? And halfway through the sentence, I addressed it and I said, the fact of the matter is that young people will probably be more inclined to do something technology related. Okay, so I'm matching the tenses. And then the final reason why it's a good answer is because I've really listened to the question and I said, I've come, and you can see that I've listened, or you can hear that I've listened to the question because I've said they have an advantage over older people. So I'm quite specific. I'm saying, once, that young people will probably do something technology related, and then second, because they've got an advantage over the older people. Okay, so I'm giving a reason. And this is what we should be aiming for if we want to get a 7 or above. Let's move on. Out of the question, it just means it's like completely irrelevant, or it's not really gonna, it's irrelevant. So typical or recent Part 3 question that was asked, when do people in your country retire? My answer, well, they used to retire around 50. But nowadays, that's out of the question. I think currently the legal retirement age is 64, but I'm not too certain about that though. So once again, I've answered the question, okay? As far as I know, just like, the best of my knowledge is this. I also used the past. I said, well, they used to retire, but nowadays that's out of the question. They used to retire around 50, but nowadays it's out of the question. And then I answer the question directly. When do people in your country retire? I think currently the legal retirement age is 64, but I'm not too certain. Okay, so the question was in present simple. Eventually, halfway through the sentence, I answer. I think currently the legal retirement age is 64. So I answer in present simple as well. Okay, so once again, out of the question. And remember, the best way to use these is to use them in context. Don't force them. Just try and incorporate it into your natural everyday speaking, into your natural everyday conversations, and then eventually you'll be able to use them more appropriately or more aptly. So wrap your head around something. Okay, so this is when it's difficult to comprehend or difficult to grasp. Yeah. So I have difficulty wrapping my head around the fact that if you ask your IELTS score to be reevaluated, i.e. remarked, it takes 30 days. Okay, so personal example there. It's I have difficulty wrapping my head around this, grasping the fact or comprehending it. Now, let's use this in a typical Part 3 follow-on question, not a typical recent one. The recent question was, do you think weather has changed comparing to the past? In what way? So there's two questions here. Remember, I said before, the speaking test is a listening test because we really need to pay attention to what is being asked so we can ascertain, so we can determine what the tense is and also our answer. So again, do you think the weather has changed comparing to the past? In what way? Two parts there. So my answer, well, it's difficult to wrap my head around that because where I've lived all my life, the weather has been very, very constant. It's just sunny all the time. However, I have heard that weather patterns are changing compared to the past. Typhoons in Asia, flooding in Europe, and droughts in North America. So I guess maybe they are changing. You could say they are becoming more erratic and violent. Okay, so this was my answer. And it's quite a long answer, but there were two questions in the initial question. First, I managed to get the wrap your head around something, okay, assuming that I'm from a country where it's just always hot, there's no rain, it's just always sunshine, then I could say this, okay? And the changing weather patterns is not relevant to me because, like I said, it's quite stable where I'm from. So it's difficult for me to wrap my head around the idea to comprehend these changing patterns. But I am aware that they are changing in certain places. Now, the other reason why this is a good answer is because I've put in some really good vocabulary specifically related to the weather. I'm talking about typhoons, flooding, droughts, all these that I wouldn't talk about unless we were talking about weather, but it shows the examiner that I've got very vast lexical resource, that I've got some good vocabulary, and then I can answer this question. And then the final bit, you could say they are becoming more erratic. You could say the weather is becoming more erratic and more violent. Okay, so in what way? And then the final part of the question I got was, in what way are these weather patterns changing? I answer that. You could say that they are becoming more erratic and violent. You see, pay attention to the question. Here, I got the tense right. It did come later, but I remembered, okay? It's not a perfect match. It doesn't have to be always a perfect match. It does have to be appropriate. Getting the perfect tense is useful, okay? It's useful if you just want to be absolutely certain, but if you've got more confidence, then you can play with it a little bit. Next one. Beyond the shadow of a doubt, okay? I will get a band 8 in my writing. Without a shadow of a doubt, I will get it this time, okay? Beyond the shadow of a doubt, I will get it this time. So this is when you're definite, when you're absolutely certain, okay? So typical question, the same question as before. Do you think the weather has changed comparing to the past? In what way? Yes, I definitely think the weather has changed. There's more typhoons in Asia, more flooding in Europe, more droughts in North America. It's changed considerably, probably because of global warming. In what way? Well, it's become more drastic, more dramatic, and the effects seem to be more frequent as well. Okay? So I think I included beyond a shadow of a doubt. I think I did at the beginning. Anyway, it's quite clear there, the answer. You can use it when you're absolutely certain about something. And like I've said, before in other videos, we use this in context, okay? If the examiner is asking you, what's your name? You don't say, beyond any shadow of a doubt, my name's Ben. All right? We use it in context. We use it when it's appropriate, and we don't force it. So, where is it? The next one. To go the extra mile. To go the extra mile. What does that mean? It just means to go a little bit further, often to get your goals, to get your objective. Okay, so if you want to get ahead in life, it's common to say, if you want to get ahead in life, you have to go that extra mile. You have to do that extra task. You know, like they used to say in the past, first one in, last one out, and you'll never be out of a job. Okay, according to the business. So if you're working in an office, you're the first one in there, last one out, you'll never be fired. The truth of that is somewhat debatable nowadays. However, you know, the point I want to make is the extra mile, to go the extra mile. So if you want to get a band 7 or above, you've got to go that extra mile. You've got to do the extra work. You've got to write that extra essay. You've got to invest in yourself, in your own success, and then you'll be able to get that band 7. Okay? So, typical question that we might get, a recent question for the Part 3 follow-on questions. What are interesting activities around the river area? Okay, assuming we've been talking about rivers or tourism related to rivers beforehand. So, well, interesting. Okay, so let's see. What are interesting activities around the river area? Well, there's lots of different activities you can do. You can go canoeing, you can hire a speedboat, and I think you can even go whitewater rafting. And sometimes you can pay the tour operator to go that extra mile, and they will take you to the, they'll take you to higher up the river, where it's a little bit more exciting, but also a little bit dangerous. So it wasn't the best use to go the extra mile there. So there's a good example of just don't force it. Just try and wait for the natural opportunity to use it. Okay, so those are 5 idioms we can use in our speaking. Remember, context is important. If you can match the tense, also remember that the speaking test is also a listening test. Okay, and likewise, the writing test is also a reading test. I've said this before. Now, if you want any more help with your IELTS, go to IELTSPodcast.com. You good luck with your IELTS preparation. Take care.